The young Filipino teen stepped onto the massive America's Got Talent stage with a kind of quiet fear that made people instantly protective of her. She clutched the microphone with trembling hands, her thin shoulders rising and falling as she tried to breathe steadily. She looked so small under the bright lights, but behind her eyes there was a depth, a heaviness that only comes from carrying more pain than someone her age should ever know. When Simon asked her why she came to AGT, she didn't give a long speech or try to impress anyone. She simply said, "To give my family a chance, and to show the world what my voice survived." The judges exchanged glances, unsure what she meant, but everyone in the audience leaned forward. The music began softly, but the moment she opened her mouth, something electric passed through the entire theater. Her first note was fragile yet piercing, the kind of sound that feels like it's coming straight from a wound that never healed. It wasn't just singing, it was a confession, a raw cry wrapped in melody. People who were talking stopped mid-sentence. Some gasped. Her voice carried the exhaustion of nights singing outside small markets just to help her mother earn enough for rice. It carried the memory of storms that flooded their home and weeks when they ate only bread. Every lyric trembled with lived truth. By the chorus, her voice rose with a force that didn't match her tiny frame. It cracked, not because she was weak, but because she was reliving every moment she wanted to forget. The audience was already crying. Even the judges sat frozen, shocked by the storm inside her voice. Her vibrato sounded like it was fighting to stay steady, like she was holding back tears while giving the world everything she had left. When she reached the final note, she didn't just hit it, she soared through it. The note filled the whole theater, swelling until the crowd could feel it in their bones. The instant the music stopped, the audience exploded to their feet, cheering and clapping so loudly she stepped back in surprise. Simon leaned back in his chair, shaking his head slowly with a stunned smile, the kind he gave only to singers who changed the energy of the room. "You didn't sing that song," Simon said after a long pause. "You lived it. Every word felt real. That wasn't a performance, that was your story." The teen covered her mouth as tears streamed down her face. The judges gave her 4 powerful yeses, and the audience chanted her name while she walked off stage, overwhelmed, crying, and finally believing that maybe, just maybe, her life was about to change. After her audition went viral, the Filipino teen found herself in a whirlwind she had never imagined. Millions of viewers replayed her performance, calling her voice beautifully broken, pain carved into sound, and the soul of a fighter. She wasn't used to attention, she wasn't used to praise. At home in the Philippines, people hurried past her when she sang on the sidewalk. Now the world knew her name. As she stepped back into the AGT studio for judge cuts, she wore the same worn shoes she had used during her audition, not because she wanted consistency, but because she couldn't afford new ones. When she walked on stage, the judges greeted her warmly. The guest judge smiled at her with deep admiration, as if already sensing the emotional power she carried in her voice. Before she sang, she said her performance was dedicated to her father, who had worked overseas her entire life, missing birthdays, graduations, even Christmas, all in hopes of giving her a chance at a better future. She whispered, "This is my letter to him." The song began softly, almost like a prayer. Her voice quivered with longing, each lyric sounding like a memory she had kept buried for years. When she reached the chorus, her voice cracked open, spilling emotion so raw that people in the crowd were wiping tears without hesitation. Grown men covered their faces. Women clutched their hearts. Even the judges leaned forward, stunned again by how much truth a single teenager could deliver. Halfway through the performance, the guest judge's eyes filled with tears. The teen's voice rose higher and higher, powered not by ego but by love, ache, and a lifetime of waiting for her father to come home. When she delivered the final note, the theater erupted, but the guest judge didn't clap. She stood up, walked forward, and slammed the golden buzzer. Golden confetti burst from the ceiling as the girl fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. The judges ran to hug her while the audience screamed her name. In that moment, a street-singing Filipino teen with nothing but a painful voice and a dream was lifted into golden light, her entire life changing in a single breath. The night of the live shows arrived with a weight the Filipino teen had never felt before. The arena was bigger, brighter, louder, yet she felt smaller than she ever had. Backstage, she clutched the silver necklace her mother had given her, repeating to herself that she belonged here even if her shaking hands said otherwise. Her simple dress, donated by a kind supporter online, made her feel both grateful and self-conscious. She knew other contestants had stylists, professional makeup, and expensive stage clothes. She had hope, a trembling voice, and a heart full of stories no one else had lived. As producers hurried around, she tried to steady her breathing, reminding herself why she was here, to represent her mother, her family, and every kid who grew up believing dreams were only for people with money. When it was her turn, she stepped out into the blinding lights and saw the audience rising around her like a sea of strangers waiting to judge her worth. But then she spotted her mother sitting in the front row, wearing a borrowed dress, eyes shining with pride and worry. It was the first time her mother had ever seen her sing on a real stage. That alone made the girl's heart ache and burst at the same time. She whispered, "This is for you, Mama," and the music began. The theme of the night was heroes, and she chose a song for the woman who raised her alone, working endless days despite sickness and exhaustion. Her voice started soft, almost shaky, but filled with emotion that pulled everyone's attention instantly. People leaned forward, already sensing this wasn't just a performance, it was a confession, a thank you, a cry, and a promise all in one. As she sang, her voice carried every memory of seeing her mother come home tired, hands swollen, face pale, yet still asking if she had eaten. It carried the memory of nights when they had nothing but boiled eggs, but still laughed together just to forget how hard life was. Her voice wrapped those memories into every lyric. When she reached the chorus, something inside her broke open. Her voice became stronger, rising higher, vibrating with fierce love and pain. The audience felt it like a punch straight to the heart. People cried openly. Some hugged each other. The camera caught her mother covering her mouth, tears running down her face as she whispered prayers for her daughter's strength. Even the judges, usually so composed, looked shaken. Heidi wiped her eyes. Howie leaned forward, stunned. Simon, who rarely showed emotion, blinked rapidly, trying not to show how deeply the performance hit him. By the final note, the arena was so silent it felt like the world had stopped. Then the place exploded. Cheers, screams, applause echoing through the entire building. The teen stood frozen, overwhelmed, hands trembling as she looked at the judges. They all stood, every single one. The longest standing ovation of the night. Simon said, "Your pain becomes art when you sing. You turned a song into a story every person in this room felt." The girl walked off stage sobbing, hugging her mother tightly while people backstage clapped for her. For the first time, she felt seen not as a poor girl trying to survive but as an artist powerful enough to move the world. The days leading to the semi-finals were the hardest of her entire AGT journey. Just when she thought things were finally getting better, she received news from the Philippines that her father, who had recently reached out after years of silence, had suddenly gone out of contact again. No messages, no calls, no explanation. It felt like losing him all over again. She tried to rehearse, but her voice kept breaking. The producers noticed her wiping tears between takes. Every time she thought she had healed, life reminded her of its sharp edges. But when semi-finals night came, something inside her shifted. As she stepped onto the stage, the pain didn't shrink her, it fueled her. She wasn't singing to survive anymore, she was singing to reclaim the pieces of herself that life had scattered. The stage lights rose, painting her in soft hues of blue and white. The audience fell silent before she even opened her mouth. They could sense the heaviness around her, like a storm waiting to break. The first lyric floated out soft and mournful, but controlled, stable, and hauntingly pure. This time her voice wasn't trembling. It was steady, powerful, and full of a quiet anger that made each word hit hard. People in the audience felt the shift immediately. She wasn't just a girl singing about pain. She was a young woman owning it, transforming it, turning it into something beautiful. Her voice rose with a clarity and depth she had never reached before, filling the whole room with emotion. Even the judges seemed caught off guard. As the song grew, her voice climbed higher, stretching into notes that sent shivers through the audience. She delivered them with such precision that people held their breath. Her eyes glistened under the lights, but no tears fell. She wasn't breaking this time, she was rising. Every lyric felt like a declaration. I am not weak. I am not small. I am not going to let anything stop me now. By the final chorus, the entire arena looked mesmerized. It felt like everyone was witnessing a transformation right in front of them. The shy girl from auditions was gone. In her place stood someone powerful, someone unafraid, someone who knew she deserved this stage. When she ended the song with a soft, heart-wrenching whisper of the final line, the audience erupted so loudly the judges couldn't hear each other. Simon placed his hand over his heart and said, "That was your moment. Tonight, you became the voice of this season." Heidi added, "I felt every inch of your soul in that performance." The crowd kept cheering long after she left the stage. When voting opened, she became one of the highest vote-getters of the night, securing her place in the finale. Backstage, she finally allowed herself to cry, not from sadness, but from the realization that she was no longer defined by what she lost. She was defined by how beautifully she rose above it. As the finale week approached, the Filipino teen found herself living a life she had once only seen on tiny TV screens in neighbors' houses. She was in rehearsals from morning till night, meeting producers, recording short interviews, and walking through halls lined with posters of past AGT legends. But despite all the excitement, her heart felt heavy with a strange emptiness she couldn't describe, until one morning, her phone buzzed with a message that froze her breath. It was from her father. The man who had left to work overseas when she was a baby. The man she had waited for every birthday, every Christmas, every school program. The man who had disappeared again right before semifinals. And now, out of nowhere, he wrote, "I'm proud of you. I see you singing. I'm sorry for everything." She stared at the message for several minutes, unable to move. Tears came suddenly, falling so fast she couldn't keep up. Her vocal coach rushed to her side, worried that she was hurt, but she could only choke out, "My dad, he saw my videos." For the first time in years, she felt like a missing piece of her heart had returned. The producers were careful with her, giving her space to breathe, but the pressure of finale night didn't stop for anyone, not even a girl with a newly reopened wound.